Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a second podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
So we did a great job, and we weren't treated fairly by the media because we really did a good job.
You were a rock star. I saw the video of it.
It was crazy. The cheering was deafening.
You don't know the people that has died there because they don't know, they don't have no communication, you know, so right now they say 18 people died. No. We have more people died.
We can't figure out why supplies are not coming in from San Juan.
Okay, so basically we're in this area, we're really the only ones here. We're 12 volunteer veterans, and people are hurting really bad right now.
The media is fake.
Every American should look at those pictures and say, do we want more of this? This is one simple thing that stops the making of a semi-automatic weapon into a machine gun.
Look, the Second Amendment really predates the Bill of Rights. Our founding fathers believed strongly in gun rights for citizens to bear arms.
But is it unlimited?
It is. I mean, you've seen.
Wish I was looking this off your pussy.
What?
Yeah. Facebook employees would show up for work every day in our offices.
Whoa, wait a minute. Facebook employees showed up at the Trump headquarters?
Google employees and Twitter employees.
I have a sense that there will, in fact, be indictments.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like he's on a reality show of some kind, you know, when he's talking about these big foreign policy issues. We could be heading towards World War III with the kind of comments that he's making.
All of a sudden, it's become a big deal now about oppression. There has been no oppression in the last 100 years that I know of. I don't care who you are. If you can't respect the flag and the country, then you don't respect what this is all about. So I would say, adios.
I'm telling you right now.
What do we have to do here?
Nothing. I'm going to take a shower. You sit there and have a drink. Water.
I don't drink. Can I stay on the bar?
No, you must come here now.
No.
Please.
No, I don't want to.
I'm not doing anything with you.
We have one set of law in the books, but there are really two legal systems. One legal system is for big corporations, for the wealthy and the powerful. And the second system is for everyone else.
It's disheartening that the president of a country would call any of his citizens an SOB. But then when you compare that, the events that happened in Charlottesville, where neo-Nazis killed a person and nearly beat another person to death, and he calls them very fine people. It's sad.
I went to an Ivy League school. I was a good student. I'm a very smart person.
Chartered waters. We have a White House where the staff views the president, let's be blunt, almost as a national security risk. General Kelly and Secretary Mattis have had conversations about if Trump lunged for the nuclear football, what would they do? Would they tackle him? I mean, literally physically restrain him from putting the country at sort of perilous risk.
And you have less than half the country that has what you need to sustain life. Without fresh water, power, food, places to live.
Mr. Cuomo, you're simply just making this stuff up.
How am I making it up? What am I making up?
If half the country didn't have food or water, those people would be dying. And they're not.
I am very uncomfortable with the President of the United States being able to dictate the behavior and power of anybody. I don't think that it is useful or helpful for any employee anywhere to be forced to do something because the government says they must. That scares the hell out of me.
Why we must put an end to Iran's continued aggression and nuclear ambitions. They have not lived up to the spirit of their agreement.
Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
You're fired.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. It's Friday the 13th, you bastards. It's Friday the 13th. Fake news Friday the 13th. But then with this president, every day is Friday the 13th. You know, now all of a sudden, I mean, this week alone, that was just this week alone. I mean, in the last 24 hours, Trump has tweeted that he wants to pull FEMA out. They can't stay in Puerto Rico forever. He has, decided that he's not going to recertify the Iran nuclear deal. And he has imploded or tried to implode the entire United States health insurance system. And we have 3 more years of this, everybody. 3 more years. What's going to be left? I don't know. It's crazy. This is just every day you wake up and all I find myself saying is, hurry up, Mueller. Hurry up. Oh, my God. So today, he said the Democrats' Obamacare is imploding. Massive subsidy payments to their pet insurance companies have stopped. Dems should call me to fix. It's a ransom demand, everybody, and we're all the hostages. Oh, my God. Dems should call me to fix. A brilliant negotiating tactic. The skills, the brilliant negotiations of Donald Trump. There are carjackers who have better negotiating skills than Donald Trump has. I mean, this is like amazing. He has just decided that he is not going to. The executive branch is supposed to send payments to insurance carriers to cover low-income Americans, to help them bridge the gap between their deductibles, their prescription drug bills. $7 billion. It's paid monthly, and it's part of the ACA. It's part of the law. Well, this president decided he's not going to send the payments because he's the executive branch. He's not going to send the payments. And so we're looking at he also decided that he is going to allow states to sell crap plans again. He's going to allow states to sell these scam plans that don't cover anything, which is worse than nothing, because if you had nothing, you would know you're not getting anything covered. When you buy these scam plans, you think you're covered until you submit your bills, and then you find out it covers absolutely nothing that you were billed for. So, I mean, you would literally be better off with no insurance than you would be with what Trump is proposing. You know, because with what Trump is proposing, you pay to get no coverage. That sucks. I just want to point out to the very stupid out there, that would be bad. You pay, you think you're covered, but it covers nothing. Those scam plans. And they will be scam plans because they don't have to conform to the 10 essential health benefits. They don't have to conform to any government oversight. And of course he goes, well, then they will be able to sell over state lines. Okay, can I just briefly explain to you, before we get into like World War III territory, why selling over state lines doesn't work? 6 states actually allow their insurance carriers to sell over state lines. No policies have been sold that way. None. Do you know why? Because doctors form insurance groups and they take certain insurance and they don't bother with the out-of-state stuff because they don't know the regulations in the other state. It's enough for them to keep up with what's going on in their state. So, you know, this idea of selling across state lines, doctors hate it, hospitals hate it, everybody hates it, patients hate it. You got to wait longer. It doesn't ever work. So we don't do that. I mean, it's legal in 6 states. Half a dozen states had moved to sell across state lines. No plans have ever been sold that way. So he's just destroying our healthcare system. For what? For what? A win. He's doing it for a win because he said he would. I mean, this is just amazing. Now, my other boyfriend, you know, James Comey is my boyfriend, but my other boyfriend, Austin Goolsbee, and people cannot figure out why I'm attracted to him. It's all in the head. You know what I mean? It's all in the cerebral part. I'm very attracted to him. Criticize me, I don't care. I love Austin Goolsbee.
That will be a catastrophic decision that will lead to millions of people losing their insurance, and there will be thousands of people that die or get major medical expenses, declare bankruptcy and others if they actually make that decision. If they do, they will pay a price for having done it, but I still don't want them to do that. I don't want them to pay that price, because I would rather have those millions of people not lose their insurance. This is crazy town. This is a decision that is opposed by every major medical organizations, the doctors, the nurses, the hospitals, the insurance companies, the consumer groups, and every other leading expert group has opposed this decision.
That's everybody. I mean, that's everybody. There is no one left except for Trump who thinks this is a good idea. Okay. But today, just so you know, he was the first sitting president to ever do this today. He went to the Values Voters Summit. Yes, to pass himself off as, a person who votes and has values, to pass himself off as uber Christian. This was really odd because this man has fewer voters than any other president has ever had, and he's got fewer values than any other president has ever had, and that's saying something, okay? But he told the Values Voters about this Christian nation of ours, okay? About what a great Christian nation of ours, while he was literally depriving millions of people of health insurance. I mean, it's unbelievable.
We are stopping cold the attacks on Judeo-Christian values.
I actually just did a spit take. Oh! Oh!
Oh! Thank you. Thank you very much.
All over my back.
And something I said so much during the last 2 years, but I'll say it again as we approach the end of the year.
Oh.
You know, we're getting near that beautiful Christmas season that people don't talk about anymore.
Thank you.
They don't use the word Christmas because it's not politically correct. You go to department stores and they'll say Happy New Year and they'll say other things and it'll be red. They'll have it painted, but they don't say, well, guess what? We're saying Merry Christmas again.
I may start World War III, and I'm going to, deprive people of health care. Puerto Rico can go to hell.
And as a Christmas gift to all of our hardworking families, we hope Congress will pass massive tax cuts for the American people.
Oh, my God. His solution for all that ails us, for a healthcare system that obviously needs, some fixing, for a world that could be peaceful, for honoring, treaties that we sign on to and deals that we, negotiated over 13 years with all other civilized nations and not so civilized nations around the world. Russia and China and the Iran deal, they're signatories to it. Of course, the entire European Union, Germany, France, Britain, everybody. And Iran itself came to the table. And, he may start World War III, but he's going to say Merry Christmas. He's going to say, by the way, what is he going to do? Is he going to force department stores? Is he going to force Macy's? Is he going to force, Saks Fifth Avenue? Is he going to force Kohl's? Is he going to force JCPenney? Is he going to force my company, Dark Horse Broadcast? Is he going to force Dark Horse to hang a wreath? Or is Scotty going to be, legally mandated to build a manger scene? Or, we're Jews, not Brett. But me and Scotty, you know what? It's just like me. Is he going to force companies to say Merry Christmas? Am I going to have to open the show with Merry Christmas during the entire season? This man needs to go. He needs to go. And all of these partisan efforts to force private entities, private companies, big and small, to say or do something, from the NFL to the department stores now, is illegal.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Yeah, you could buy tile at a chain store if you wanted to. You could wait for a kid to try and answer your questions about what's this made of, or how do I install it, or what's in stock. But what if you wanted serious craftsmanship? What if you wanted custom design, handmade to order from your imagination or an inspiration photo that you love. Probably you think you can't anymore, but I did. When it was time to shop tile, I came across a family-owned business that still handcrafts each and every individual tile, matching your colors, your inspiration, your design. Tempest Tile Works. They're based in Portland, Oregon, and they still handcraft the most magnificent tile. Let them match to your fabrics or to your countertops or to anything you can envision for your bath or kitchen. Teeny tiny tiles to oversized, their art or yours. It's all doable, it's all affordable, and it's all individually made just for your project. Visit Tempest Tile Works and look at their amazing gallery of designs and styles and give up the chain stores. Tempest Tile Works, custom made. TempestTileWorks.com.
Tales of American Political History with Clinton Porter Hackney.
We've been talking about how the U.S. and Canadian railroads established the first time zones in America. The problem still remained, though, that many locales didn't use the standard zone time, but stuck with their local solar time instead. But the railroad companies had at least gotten the ball rolling. Though most states adhered to the new standard time by 1895, many places in the U.S. kept using the old sundial time into the 1900s. But the federal government continued to stay out of it, allowing any locale to use whatever time it liked. Finally, in March of 1918, Congress passed the Standard Time Act, which mandated the zones set up by the railroads and gave the power to make changes to the Interstate Commerce Commission, and in 1966, Congress moved time zone oversight to the Department of Transportation. It had taken long enough, but finally Congress jumped in to organize our time. This is Clinton Porter Hackney at cphackney.com.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a diversified media enterprises production. I'm Doug Cunningham.
Is there going to be a labor chapter? Yes. Is the labor chapter going to work? And is it going to raise wages in Mexico so that we can raise wages in the U.S. and Canada too? That's an open question.
The AFL-CIO's Celeste Drake from the NAFTA renegotiation talks in Washington, D.C. The original NAFTA trade agreement did not put labor or environmental chapters into the main text. The Teamsters' Mike Dolan, an international trade lobbyist for the union, and Jim Hoffa's liaison in the NAFTA renegotiations.
At the end of the day, if it doesn't work for working families, and I don't mean just in the U.S., but I mean for working families throughout North America, then we will oppose it. We will oppose NAFTA 2.0. We'll find out whether or not this NAFTA replacement will be something that actually puts the workers' interests in front of the short-term profit motives of the corporate and investment elites.
The NAFTA renegotiations are moving at a very fast pace for trade agreement talks. Celeste Drake says that while the U.S. trade representative is serious about the talks and does seem to be listening to labor, she has real concerns about transparency and the lack of real democracy as this new NAFTA is decided.
It's a very closed-door process that when you marry it to the fast-track provisions that allow it to be voted on at the end with no amendments, quick debate, it's really problematic in terms of democracy because the general public, if you're outside that stakeholder group, you didn't get to help make it and you don't get to help fix it. So it's really undemocratic.
Dolan says the Teamsters want to take the ISDS private corporate trade court out of NAFTA, along with the open cross-border trucking provisions. Here's what the Teamsters want to be in the new NAFTA.
NAFTA 2.0 must include a labor chapter with enforceable protections against child labor, forced labor, and protections for some of the labor rights that we take for granted in this country, like freedom of association and collective bargaining. We want to see wage rates increase under NAFTA, so there isn't this incentive to relocate production south of the border to Mexico, which is what we've seen for the last 20-plus years.
But according to Canadian NAFTA negotiators, Mexico isn't the only NAFTA nation undercutting labor standards. Canada wants the U.S. to rescind its anti-union laws called Right to Work. Drake says that they're serious.
They're serious. Their eyes are open. They know what a tough ask this is for the United States. But this isn't just a game where they're going to push the proposal across the table and take it right back immediately.
Basically what they're saying is that these state laws that undermine the power of unions have therefore the effect of depressing wages.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit workersindependentnews.com.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
We also stand with the millions of people who have suffered from the massive fires which are right now raging in California and the catastrophic hurricanes along the Gulf Coast in Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and I will tell you, I left Texas, and I left Florida, and I left Louisiana, and I went to Puerto Rico, and I met with the president of the Virgin Islands. These are people that are incredible people. They've suffered gravely, and we'll be there. We're going to be there. We have really, it's not even a question of a choice. We don't even want a choice. We're going to be there as Americans, and we love those people and what they've gone through. And they're all healing, and their states and territories are healing, and they're healing rapidly.
Puerto Rico, 91% of the island does not have power or potable water. 91%. It was 83% yesterday, but they had a problem at one of the, electric centers. They haven't elaborated. And so we're back to 91% of the island not having power. And also, could I just say as an aside, he met with the president of the Virgin Islands. Do you know who the president of the Virgin Islands is? He is. Let that sink in for a minute. Donald Trump is the president of the Virgin Islands. He's also president of Puerto Rico. I have a higher IQ than anybody. Yeah. Let's take an IQ test, Mr. President. Come on. Come on. Let's do it. You and me. You and me. Just you and me, baby. Oh, my God. He's the president of the Virgin Islands. The person he met with in the Virgin Islands is the governor of the Virgin Islands, the governor of Puerto Rico. He's the president of the Virgin Islands. And only yesterday he was tweeting, hey, Puerto Rico, we can't keep FEMA there forever. You better learn to help yourself. What is with this guy? You can't follow any train of thought because the train it's like on multiple tracks. It's like one train, multiple tracks, and it's just like splitting down the middle. I don't know what he says. I don't know what he means by what he says. I don't know anything about. I can't figure it out. But California's healing rapidly. You're healing rapidly, because that would be news to me, because before the show started, I wrote down how many people died in California in these wildfires, and it was 31. And just now, it went up to 32. Healing rapidly. 221,000 acres have burned. There's 17 wildfires that are still raging right now. The winds are getting more gusty today. Tomorrow looks like it's going to be pretty, like 60-mile-an-hour winds. And those conditions, mixed with the low humidity that you have out there, Sunday night they're saying gusts up to 70 miles an hour. They're not going to be healing rapidly. I don't know what he's talking about. I met with the president of the Virgin Islands. You're the president of the Virgin Islands. I can't figure this. I don't understand. Here's California.
They're 85 years old, and I just don't know if they can rebuild. I mean, so many family heirlooms. I've thought my whole life I'm going to inherit these someday. This is what I'm going to pass down to my kids. Oh, God, I can't.
Oh.
All your life savings and work for all the years is gone. No. Since we've lived here 10 years, I never thought that Santa Rosa would have a fire like this, and we would lose everything.
You know how many of you came to my house and shared our beautiful view and our beautiful sky. But this is it. We're trying to find which house was ours.
Oh my God.
Went to bed about 12, and my one dog, she's really alert to things. She started barking and just wanting me to check on stuff. It was really windy. I went out front, wind's blowing, ashes coming down. Just grabbed my keys, my truck, and my dogs and took off. I'm just glad to be here. Glad to have my dogs. You can replace the stuff, but life's most important, so.
Fires are still out there. They are still actively growing.
resources still continue to be limited. We have folks on the fire line starting their third shift right now that have not been relieved because there's folks not available to come in with so many fires in the area.
Jesus Christ, you're healing very quickly, California. Healing very quickly. 400 people are missing. 32 people are dead that we know of. You have deputies having to wait for houses to cool off before they could go in the houses to see if there are bones of people, dead bodies in the house. The Sonoma County Sheriff's Office identified 10 victims on Thursday. Most of them were over 70. Yeah, the youngest was 57, the oldest was 95. Sonoma, Mendocino, Napa counties, they're the hardest hit by the fires. 20% of the population in those counties are over the age of 65. So you've got lots and lots of elderly people that just can't run. They didn't know what to do, okay? And you have seconds to react, which is why we were talking about a bug-out bag with Joy from the chat room. You have pregnant women who got stuck in traffic and they had other children with them, their previous children, and they got stuck in traffic and they thought they were going to die. She said, her name is Charity Ruiz. She said, honestly, I've never felt in my life like I was going to die, like in that moment, not just me, but my girls and my unborn baby. So she got out of the car, left her car, went back to her house and got her bicycle and rode out of the neighborhood with her 2 girls in the toddler trailer. She said, I can ride a bike. I'm pregnant, but it was hard, but I could. And then her house burned to the ground. Yeah. You have Charles Schultz, the creator of Peanuts, the comic strip. His house burned to the ground. His widow, Jean, 78, she had to evacuate their house on Monday, and the flames ate his house and reduced it to rubble. And their son, Monty Schultz, said that it destroyed everything that his father had built, that they had built together, a lot of memorabilia and things like that. The firefighters are absolutely exhausted. Like this firefighter just told you, there are 8,000 firefighters. Many of them came from out of state, but they are working 3 shifts in a row. They haven't had sleep. They've been working for days without sleep. The supervisors are trying to pull them off duty so that they could rest a little bit. They said, quote, we are finding people on the line that have just been going to work and staying out there for day after day after day. That's the Napa County Fire Chief Barry Bierman said Thursday. He said, we're identifying them. We're getting them in as soon as we can to get rest, especially now that we have more reinforcements coming. Meanwhile, many who lost homes are trying to figure out what to do next. In Yuba County, 10,000-acre blaze killed at least 4 people. Mariano and Krista Domingo saw the fire approach their fence, and they drove away with only 1 emergency oxygen tank for Krista, who needs oxygen. She has a lung disease, okay? I mean, this is just, but you're healing very quickly is what he tells the uber Christians.
We also stand with the millions of people who have suffered from the massive fires which are right now raging in California and the catastrophic hurricanes along the Gulf Coast in Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands. And I will tell you, I left Texas and I left Florida and I left Louisiana and I went to Puerto Rico, and I met with the president of the Virgin Islands.
That's you.
These are people that are incredible people. They've suffered gravely, and we'll be there. We're going to be there. We have really, it's not even a question of a choice. We don't even want a choice. We're going to be there as Americans, and we love those people and what they've gone through. And they're all healing, and their states and territories are healing, and they're healing rapidly.
Man is so far removed from reality that even calling him a reality TV star is just annoying. I mean, this is unbelievable. But this is what you get when you get a reality TV star who is, you know, another Harvey Weinstein, okay, with his, you know, you could do whatever you want to them. You know, as president, this is, I mean, why, I don't know why I'm still surprised by him. It just, it never, ever stops amazing me. The amount of brutality and evil and ill will and disdain that he has for the American people. I'm never really, you know, not shocked by it. Everything. I used to say, you know, people say to me, nothing shocks me anymore. And I always say, oh, everything shocks me, because it does. It just does. But this is really brutal. This is absolutely brutal. So Puerto Rico, here's the update on Puerto Rico. 91% are without power. It is a U.S. Commonwealth. By the way, people should really get to know what it is, okay? But 36,000 Puerto Ricans have come to Florida since October 3rd. Bienvenidos! Bienvenidos a Florida! Oh, I'm so excited. We have all these Puerto Ricans leaving Puerto Rico when they can, as soon as they can grab a flight, and they're coming to Florida, and this is great. However, they're doing it because food shortages are among the myriad challenges facing Puerto Rico's 3.4 million residents. Power outages, a shortage of drinking water have plagued the U.S. Commonwealth as well. Many communities remain cut off from the world. No phone service. Roads are blocked. 91% of Puerto Ricans were without power Friday, which was an increase from the 83% that we had on Thursday. And that's because Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority, PREPA, attributed the increase to those without power to a failure in the central system, but they didn't elaborate on what that means. So all we know is that there's no internet, there's no way for them to communicate, there's no way to get to a cell phone, there's no way to get any information about communities that aren't directly in San Juan. 1.2 million people, that's half of Puerto Rico, are without potable water. People are lining up every single day just to fill a bucket with, mountain water, stream water. Maybe a tank truck shows up, maybe it doesn't. And all that the House of Representatives has done so far is pass a $3.5 billion disaster package that should be split between Puerto Rico and Texas. Good luck to everybody. Good luck. I mean, and this man stands in front of the values voters who applaud him for having no values about voters. I mean, this is just so sick. This is so twisted. I can't even tell you. And then he said, oh, there's nobody more Christian than me. I'm taking away Obamacare subsidies. Effective immediately, by the way. Effective immediately. This is so sick. And then he says, we're going to say Merry Christmas. And for Christmas, hopefully you'll get some sort of a tax bill that literally increases the tax burden on middle-class families. And by the way, the subsidies that he's taking away are for low-income families. But he cares about the poor. He cares about the poor. I mean, what is wrong with her? Here's Ali Velshi dissecting the tax plan, just so you know.
Let's break down the president's plan.
Yes.
Let's start with corporate taxes. The current tax rate, corporate tax rate is 35%. That's what you call a statutory rate. That's what the tax code says you pay, but we don't actually pay that. We pay about 18.5%.
Did he say statutory rape? Because that's what this tax plan is. Just
percent on average, because some companies pay zero tax, other companies actually pay that rate. The president is proposing we slash that all to 20%, claiming that the cut would give Americans a $4,000 pay raise. I don't know what he's talking about. The White House chief economic advisor, Gary Cohn, tried to clarify that this morning.
Check this out.
When you lower the corporate tax rate and you lower the business tax rate on the pass-throughs, businesses have more earnings. So you take the money that's not being sent to the government and you give it to the employees. That ends up being about $4,000 per worker in the United States.
Dude, nuh-uh. That's not how it works. I would love somebody, anybody out there who's watching me, to tweet me at Ali Velshi and tell me of one example in which a company has saved the taxes that it pays to the United States or the government and then writes a check to its employees. That's not what companies do. You know what happens when companies have more money? They give it to their shareholders as dividends. End of story. This is just nonsense that the White House is making up here. Several economists, by the way, have completely pushed back about this, saying that unless you give us some details to indicate that tax cut is meant to be directed to employees, that's not what companies do. Tell me about the last time your company gave you a tax cut bonus.
Yeah, tell me about the last time your company gave you a tax cut bonus. Just give me a call, 561-270-3844, or tweet me at Randi Rhodes. Just tell me, when was the last time your company, through your productivity and hard work, made more profits and passed it on to you? Now tell me about the last time that they actually experienced, a new accountant who saved them money in federal taxes, and they said, hey, we hired a new accountant. He saved us some money in federal taxes, so we're going to pass that on to you. Look at your paycheck next week. It'll have more money in it because we saved money on our federal taxes. Never has happened. Never will happen. They give their shareholders dividends when they're more profitable, not you. this is such a... I can't believe Gary Cohn said that with a straight face. I mean, you just got to sit there and scratch your head in other various body parts and say, what the...
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com. This is the voice of the resistance. You're listening to the Progressive Voices Network.
This is Ezra Levin, Executive Director of Indivisible. Please go to indivisibleguide.com, type in your zip code, find your local Indivisible group, and join the movement to resist Trump's agenda. We've teamed up with Progressive Voices Network to help your community take action and hold Congress accountable.
Donald Trump is the biggest popular vote loser in history to ever call himself president-elect. He will attempt to use his congressional majority to reshape America in his own racist, authoritarian, and corrupt image. If progressives are going to stop this, we must stand indivisibly opposed to Trump and the members of Congress, or MOCs, who would do his bidding. Together, we have the power to resist. And we have the power to win. We know this because we've seen it before. The authors of this guide are former congressional staffers who witnessed the rise of the Tea Party. We saw these activists take on a popular president with a mandate for change and a supermajority in Congress. We saw them organize locally and convince their own MOCs to reject President Obama's agenda. Their ideas were wrong, cruel, and tinged with racism. And they won. We believe that protecting our values, our neighbors, and ourselves will require mounting a similar resistance to the Trump agenda, but a resistance built on the values of inclusion, tolerance, and fairness. Trump is not popular. He does not have a mandate. He does not have large congressional majorities. If a small minority in the Tea Party can stop President Obama, then we, the majority, can stop a petty tyrant named Trump.
Take action and hold Congress accountable. This is Ezra Levin on the Progressive Voices Network, asking you to join the millions who decided to become part of the movement to resist Trump's agenda. Check out indivisibleguide.com to start resisting on your home turf. Keep listening for more ways you can get involved.
This is the voice of the resistance. You're listening to the Progressive Voices Network. Your favorite Progressive Voices shows and your favorite hosts are available anytime, anywhere on demand. Fully searchable on the PV app, SoundCloud, iTunes, and ProgressiveVoices.com. Randi Rhodes, Nicole Sandler's What's News, The Coffee Cast, Green News Reporter, Pterodactyl, they're all there whenever you want to listen, on demand 24/7. The Carell Cast, Off Kilter, Nurse Talk, Breaking Through, Laura Flanders, dozens more, updated daily and fully searchable on ProgressiveVoices.com and the PV app. Your choice, your schedule, on demand from Progressive Voices. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
So they borrowed more than $10 trillion, right? And yet we picked up $5.2 trillion just in the stock market, possibly picked up the whole thing in terms of the first 9 months, in terms of value. So you could say in one sense we're really increasing values, and maybe in a sense we're reducing debt.
What?
Dude, nuh-uh. That's not how it works. That is an erroneous claim by the President of the United States. For fact's sake, increases in the stock market have
Did he say for fuck's sake?
Absolutely no connection to the debt. First of all, let us define what we're talking about here. Debt is what the government owes based on its spending. The only way to reduce debt is to increase revenue. How? You either raise taxes, or you have really strong economic growth, or you reduce spending. That's it. Those are the only ways. It's got nothing to do with the stock market, President Trump, or anybody who works for President Trump who's listening to him. That's just dishonest. The market gains that the president is referring to is money that companies make, not the government. Companies make that money. The market's growth can have an impact on the economy, but again, nothing to do with the debt.
I said this to you yesterday. I'm so glad that everybody found that Hannity interview, because it was just a bunch of fake news. The whole thing was a fan fest posing as an interview, and the president made some of the most outrageous claims that went completely unchallenged, like because the stock market is doing well, we're paying down our debt. It made no sense to me. It made no sense to anybody. And Ali Velshi, of course, is a Wall Street dude. I mean, everything that he has proposed is detrimental to working class people, poor people. The tax cut is bogus. It's just so unbelievable. And he's got his guys out there saying things like, well, if your company pays less taxes, they will pass that tax savings on to you, the employee, in your paycheck. Never happens. Doesn't occur. No one's experienced this. The people that work at GE, okay, their company pays 0 federal taxes because they have accountants that can actually make it a 0 effective rate. You said, oh, we're the highest tax nation in the world. No, we're not. We may have a 35% corporate tax rate, although Sweden's got a higher one. And, other countries, the civilized countries, they pay 34% of their GDP through tax collection. We only take in 24% of our GDP through tax collection because we don't pay the highest taxes in the corporate world. Okay? Our corporations have an effective tax rate of anywhere from 0, and then some idiots pay the whole 35%, because when the president says that, he doesn't take into account the legal deductions that are available to corporations to offset the rate. I mean, it's just a lying fest. Everything he says, it's all fake news, and it just astounds me. It amazes me that you just can't even keep up with it. You just can't even keep up with it. So he passes an executive order yesterday that says low income people aren't going to get any help anymore paying for their health insurance, and somehow this is good news for him. And then goes to the Values Voter Summit where they have no values. I doubt that they, vote. I mean, he has no values. It's unbelievable, and invokes this uber Christianity that suddenly he possesses. Since when do you think of uber Christian and Donald Trump in the same sentence when he says, yeah, you could do anything. You can grab him by the P word. I mean, what? I just popped Tic Tacs because I can't stop kissing them. I mean, what is wrong with him? So,
This is why in a few moments I will sign an executive order taking the first steps to providing millions of Americans with Obamacare relief. It directs the Department of Health and Human Services, the Treasury, and the Department of Labor to take action to increase competition, increase choice, and increase access to lower-priced, high-quality health care options. So this is promoting health care. Millions and millions of people will be signing up for, and they're going to be very happy. This will be great health care. So congratulations to everybody.
This is sick. This is sick. What you just, there are 10 million people that are in the exchanges. 4/5 of them, 4/5, that's almost everyone in the exchange, gets some sort of help paying for their health insurance. And he just, with a stroke of his pen, decided that the executive branch isn't going to distribute the $7 billion. And open enrollment starts November 1st. Okay, this is like 2 weeks from now. I know because I have Obamacare, okay, and I get a subsidy. So the health insurers, the state regulators, they have been in a high state of anxiety, praying to God that he didn't do this because they know that this will crater the markets, especially the people who get the subsidy in the exchanges, people who don't get their health insurance through their employers, like me. Okay, like me, 4/5 of the 10 million people just got stiffed because Idiot Boy decided he needed to win on health care and he can't get it through Congress. And this is the guy that criticized Barack Obama for his executive orders, actually stealing money from the poorest Americans, from the most middle of the road Americans, me, who need a little help paying for our health insurance because we have pre-existing conditions. I mean, this is unbelievable. Ending the payments is grounds for any insurer to back out of its federal contract to sell health plans for 2018. I mean, I have health insurance today, but will I have it on November? I don't know. Because if they don't get the cost-sharing payments to help me pay for my health insurance, then they have every right to pull out because the law has been violated. This is just like what happened with Iran today, okay? It's the same damn thing. He just makes stuff up. None of it is true. Iran is in compliance with the nuclear deal. They have been certified twice by this administration, as being in compliance. Testimony has been given by General Dunford, Rex Tillerson, General Mattis, that it is in the interest of the United States of America to stay in the Iran deal, because if we don't, we will be the odd man out. We will be the isolated ones. We will be the lone wolf. Right? Here's the testimony that they gave.
Iran is not in material breach of the agreement, and I do believe the agreement to date has delayed the development of a nuclear capability by Iran.
Wow.
My view on the nuclear deal is they are in technical compliance of the nuclear arrangement.
Do you believe it's in our national security interest at the present time to remain in the JCPOA? That's a yes or no question.
Yes, Senator, I do.
Oh, my God. There's his generals. Of course, he knows more about, everything than the generals do. But there's his, that was General Dunford, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, and General Mattis testifying in front of Congress that the Iranians are in compliance, that they've not breached the deal, that it's in our national security interest to remain in the deal, and there's no reason to not certify the deal or recertify the deal every 90 days. You know why the president did what he did today? And if you haven't heard what he did, the president has decided that he's not going to recertify the Iran deal.
The deal allows Iran to continue developing certain elements of its nuclear program, and importantly, in just a few years,
25,
as key restrictions disappear, Iran can sprint towards a rapid nuclear weapons breakout. In other words, we got weak inspections in exchange for no more than a purely short-term and temporary delay in Iran's path to nuclear weapons.
He doesn't know what he's talking about, okay? First of all, Iran is subject to other treaties. They are not allowed to proliferate nuclear weapons, and that has been a long thing. But, of course, we wanted inspections, and we wanted centrifuges to stop it, because Iran was saying that their centrifuges were spinning for scientific purposes, for power plants and all. And you know what? Nobody believed them. And the entire world didn't believe them. China didn't believe them. Russia didn't believe them. The EU didn't believe them. We didn't believe them. Nobody believed them. And we said, you know what? You need to be more transparent. And here's what 13 years of diplomatic negotiations ended with the entire world and Iran coming together. 13 years it took to negotiate this deal. Coming together in a regime of inspection on demand, in a regime that said that we would give them back their money that the entire world was holding under sanctions regimes. They could have their money back. And if they did that, if they got their money back in exchange, they would allow the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN, and they would allow the UK, they would allow Germany, the United States, France, anybody that requested inspection of any, even military complexes, they would allow them in. 13 years we negotiated this deal. They finally agreed. They didn't trust the United States as being the weak link in all this, okay? They said, hey, the United States has lied plenty to us, okay? You installed your own Shah. You took over our government. You did, a whole lot. And then we had a revolution. And after the revolution, we kind of said bye-bye to you. And then we had a war with your archenemy, Iraq. We fought your archenemy, Iraq. Oh, Iraq was your dictator? Saddam Hussein was your pick? Oh, well, he gassed his own people. We thought we were doing you a favor. And what do? You fight against us as we went to fight him? And then after 9 years of us dying to get rid of this dictator, Saddam Hussein, you fight on his side and then you overthrow him. So we can't really trust you. The things you do are not trustworthy. We just want to be left alone. But yeah, we want our money back. So, okay, you give us our money back and we'll let you in to inspect. That's the whole deal. That's all it covers is nuclear inspections and a promise from Iran to comply with this arrangement. And they have. and they're not building a nuclear bomb. And you know, people say, well, you know, what if you have to give them notice? Yeah, you have to give them notice. What if they clean up? How much do you know about nuclear isotopes? How much do you know? Like, how long do they linger? Like freaking centuries, okay? You can't clean up. Also, we have drone surveillance. Also, we have, you know, if you go in there and you test soil and there's some active nuclear, then they're in breach. Idiots. They're so idiotic. So today he says he's not decertifying the deal. I mean, he's not certifying the deal. He's going to decertify, which kicks it to Congress, as I told you yesterday. Congress is the ones that can vote to reimpose sanctions. But what the president did do today also was the president decided to declare Iran's army, which has a very scary name, the Islamic Republican Guard Corps. Ooh. Labeled them a terrorist group. And that is a declaration of war on their security, apparatus, on their military. And Rex Tillerson and Mattis and Dunford and Kelly all told us the president will not go there. He will pull back from that. He will not do that, because if he does that, that is a declaration of war. And that is what Iran said today. Now, I want you to understand this. The Ayatollah is the conservative religious part of the government, just like the values voters. Okay? Just like this. They want Sharia law, and here in the United States, we want Christian law. Okay? The very conservative part of our society and the very conservative part of their society both want religious doctrine to permeate every aspect of your life. So in that way, they're very similar. The moderate, who is President Rouhani, he's a moderate. He's the person you could deal with. He's the one that actually just had an election, okay? And in their own election, they had the moderates versus the conservatives. And Rouhani was saying, religious law is not the way. Religious law is not the way. You know, the way that they operate, this is not good for Iran. Iran needs to open up. Iran needs to modernize. Iran needs to serve its people. You're right? Now, all of a sudden, today, when Trump declares this war on Iran, Rouhani says, oh, you know what? The conservatives, the Ayatollah, he was right. He was right. I made a mistake. He said, you can't trust America. You can't. And I said, yes, we can. We worked on this agreement for 13 years. It's going to be okay. You know, we should really just join the rest of the modern world. This is good for us. We'll get some money back. We can rebuild our economy, get the sanctions off. Our people will eat. It'll be great. You know, and now all of a sudden today, he's like, the conservatives were right. The conservatives were right. This isn't going to happen.
Well, it was interesting because he went on so shortly after U.S. President Trump spoke and just absolutely ripped into President Trump on pretty much every level, historically calling upon the many times that the Iranians felt that the U.S. Did them wrong, also saying that he believed a lot of the things that President Trump was saying was lies, as you've noticed, also saying that he believed that President Trump needed a history lesson. Let's listen into some more of what President Hassan Rouhani of Iran had to say just a few minutes ago.
In Trump's speech, and his talks about Iran's policy, only bad-mouthing and baseless accusations were made against the Iranian nation. He had nothing else to say.
This did not go well today. It's Friday the 13th, everybody. It is. So you have a president who decides to go to the Values Voters Summit, declare himself más Christian than anybody else. At the same time, dismantling the subsidies for 4/5 of the 10 million not rich Americans who depend on subsidies for the Obamacare, wiping that out with a stroke of a pen yesterday, basically declaring war on Iran, lying about the fact that they don't comply with this nuclear agreement when the rest of the world says, oh, yes, they do, isolating the United States from the world so that Iran will now continue to do business, you know, with Europe and all around China, India, you know, Russia. And the United States has become a pariah. And saying that California and the president of the Virgin Islands, who is Trump, are healing.
The Randi Rhodes, Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
This is Green Under Pressure. I'm your host, Susan DiGiulio, and today I'm really excited to be interviewing Jim Blackburn. He's an environmental lawyer and planner. He's professor in the practice of environmental law at Rice University, where he's also co-director of the SPEED Center, which stands for Severe Storm Prediction, Education, and Evacuation from Disaster. Any comments on the news that the EPA is going to dismantle the Clean Power Plan, the Obama administration Clean Power Plan? Do you have any thoughts on that?
There's no surprise on that. I think that's consistent with what the administration has said they were going to do from the beginning, and they're following through on what they have said they're going to do. I certainly don't support it, but it's no surprise. It is consistent with the policies that both President Trump and Rick Perry have set out at Energy. Those are policies I disagree with, but it's no surprise. They're doing exactly what they said they were going to do. We just don't believe that they're going to do it, but they have serious intentionality about what they want the country to be. And I think we're going to have to, if we're of a different mind, we're going to have as much intentionality as they.
In the last month, we've had a lot of these storms pelting the regions around the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. In Houston, where you're based, you had experienced 2 500-year floods already since, I believe it was since 2001. That was before the third happened when Hurricane Harvey hit. Well, we've been hearing from many sources, including with other guests on this show, that climate change has heated up the Gulf and that this heat is driving the intense and frequent storms. So what does this part of the world have in store for it?
The whole pattern of more intense storms is absolutely in the future, not only for the Gulf Coast of the United States, but I would say for the world in general. This has been predicted for at least a couple of decades by climate scientists that are projecting the types of impacts that we could expect with climate change. We're beginning to see those. We've had, I think you indicated 3. Actually, I think I went back and kind of researched the records, and we've had 5 500-year plus storms in the last, since 2001. So it'd be really in the last 17 years or so, which is way beyond what the statistical profile should look like. But that's exactly the type of thing that the weather scientists are telling us, that the kind of traditional bell curve, that really all of the activity with severe weather is at the edges of that bell curve, and we're just seeing more and more occurrences in the second and third degree probability area, which is basically storms that should be very rare are becoming less and less rare.
With a huge effect on our cities and population areas. We talk a lot about the effects of these floods and storms on humans, but what about the effect on the natural world?
Well, I mean, in many respects, the natural world can survive a lot of these storms, perhaps better than the built environment of humans can. Certainly our coastal plain has evolved with saltwater inundation over the years from hurricane surge. That inundation will continue to get higher and higher with sea level rise and with big storms. And I think one of the interesting things that we don't quite know the answer to is how fast will nature adapt to, if you will, the increasing sea level and the further encroachment of these storms. Similarly, our floodplains have been carved over geologic time. There are usually at least 2 layers, or 2 benches, if not 3 benches on some of these flood-prone areas, and there's a channel, which is where most of the water goes most of the time, and then you get to less frequent events and even less frequent events. We're just using the higher benches more often these days. So I think nature is going to come to it much better than humans who have built on these benches and find themselves getting flooded more and more and more often.
So what should planners be thinking about in terms of sustainably rebuilding Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands? And for that matter, hardening other areas like Miami and Naples, Florida, Louisiana, and the Texas coast. I know that there's mechanical and restorative natural options, right?
Well, I mean, that's certainly what we've been working on and studying at the Speed Center at Rice University, really since about 2009, 2010 time period. And I think we are convinced of a couple of things. One, if we don't get a better grip on these severe storm events, everything we are rebuilding will be obsolete virtually upon arrival. If our floodplain numbers are too low, we will be building roads, houses, we will be protecting hazardous waste to the wrong standard. And I think rebuilding raises that issue absolutely, and I don't know that anyone has an answer to that right now. I've not seen any great articles coming out of the engineering world about how to reestablish or to, if you will, reevaluate the current planning standard that should be used. We use 100-year storm and 100-year flood as a benchmark, but the rainfall events we've got are just simply too low for what we've been experiencing. And until those are changed, everything we're building is obsolete.
You've been listening to an ongoing series on progressive voices called Green Under Pressure. Your host is Susan DiGiulio, a sustainability expert and architect. This is a co-production of Susan DiGiulio and Flatlands Avenue Productions.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
A woman who says President Trump sexually assaulted her 10 years ago formally subpoenaed his campaign and wants to see any documents he may have related to her or any woman who asserted that Donald Trump touched them inappropriately. Summer Zervos was a former contestant on the reality TV show The Apprentice. Zervos made her accusations last year before the election. She claims Trump kissed her twice on the lips during a lunch meeting in his New York City office and on a separate occasion in Beverly Hills. She alleges he kissed her aggressively and touched her breast. Again, these allegations were from 2007, and she came forward last year during the campaign. Now, Trump has flatly denied he was inappropriate toward Zervos, calling her story total fiction aimed at derailing his run for the White House.
We want to discover and preserve many documents that are relevant to our lawsuit on behalf of Summer Zervos. So, for example, what we did was we filed, it's called a subpoena duces tecum, and we wanted the campaign to preserve and maintain and not destroy any documents from the campaign that would be relevant to our lawsuit. For example, any documents that they have pertaining to Summer Zervos or to a number of the other women who allege that Mr. Trump, now President Trump, touched them inappropriately. I'm sure that you all remember that he called all of the women who made public statements about him and made accusations of sexual misconduct or against him. He called them all liars. He said it was fabrication, fiction, and that he would sue them all after the election. I, of course, called on him to retract those statements after he was elected and retract his threat to sue. I gave him 2 months. He did not do so. We filed the defamation case on behalf of Summer Zervos in January, and we are litigating it very, very heavily. And we think that the documents in the campaign are going to be relevant to our lawsuit.
There's like, I mean, hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Please buy a stinking podcast. Thank you. Ow. Yeah. All right. So, listen, this is amazing. This happened over the weekend. Summer Zervos, who I hope you remember, was one of many, 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 many women who came forward after Donald Trump decided, to after the what was it, Inside Hollywood, or was it Inside Hollywood, the Billy Bush tape? After that, when he said he pops TikTok, he can grab anybody he wants by the P word, because when you're a star or a star maker, in Harvey Weinstein's case, they let you do it, right? And it was just so fascinating that he decided to come out and after that thing say, that is not how I live my life. This is not me. I don't do stuff like that. And called them all liars.
Every woman lied when they came forward to hurt my campaign. Total fabrication. The events never happened. Never. All of these liars will be sued after the election is over.
Yeah? When?
But a simple phone call placed to the biggest newspapers or television networks gets them wall-to-wall coverage with virtually no fact-checking whatsoever.
No, just a videotape.
Here is why this is relevant to you. If they can fight somebody like me, who has unlimited resources to fight back, just look at what they can do to you. Your jobs, your security, your education,
Summer Zervos
your
can do that
the violation
healthcare?
of religious liberty, the theft of your Second Amendment, the loss of your factories, your homes, and much more. Look at what they've done to you with your jobs.
Okay, I don't get that. Summer Zervos and all the other women that came forward. You know how many women there were that came forward about Donald Trump? I mean, it's almost in Harvey Weinstein territory. 32 women have come out against Harvey Weinstein, which I find just horrific. I mean, it's just amazing because these guys are serial molesters is what they are. Now, Trump obviously had a video come out where he said, oh, I got this habit. I pop some TikToks just in case I start kissing them. I just can't stop. And when you're a star, they'll let you do anything. They'll even let you grab your, whatever. And so now the time for this lawsuit that he said he was going to file he's never filed it. But now Summer Zervos, we find out, has sued him for defamation, for calling her a liar like that. And defamation, like I said, if he didn't call her a liar, then she has no case. But if she was molested by him and he called her a liar, which we just played, then she has a case. So it's so interesting. So now we find out that when they filed this subpoena, Dukas Take, all documents, bring the documents. That's what it means in Latin. I don't know. I don't even know what documents the Trump campaign has left. Everything on Russia has been subpoenaed, right? All their stuff about Russia should have already been given to investigators. So that means there should be nothing left except stuff about inappropriate touching. What else was there to that camp? Oh, the fact that Mexicans are rapists. Oh, that's right. He accuses other people of doing what he does, and he, isn't that interesting, started his campaign by calling other people rapists. Isn't that fascinating? Yeah. And that Hillary Clinton was running a pedophile ring. Gee, I wonder what that means about him. And of course, everyone that says anything about him is lying. And the women who are suing him, imagine what they could do to your jobs. Imagine what they can do to your I don't even know what he's talking about there. Does anybody understand him? there is no, I just can't. So, listen, today he was asked again about, what this subpoena means and, whether or not he's going to turn over documents.
All I can say is it's totally fake news. It's just fake. It's fake. It's made up stuff, and it's disgraceful what happens. But that happens in the world of politics.
That's it. It's fake news. Everything about it's all fake news. Now let me just show you him lying. Okay, just quick. It's just today. This is just this morning. Okay, this is like the most amazing freaking. The spinning, I'm getting friction burn. You know what I mean? I just can't. So, all right, let's just do today. Just today, all right? Here's how today started. Now, here's what's really, I don't even know what to say. It takes your breath away trying to follow this rat that just, keeps spinning around in the maze. But he's going to say something about Mitch McConnell in this clip, okay? I want you to know that Mitch McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, our transportation secretary, is sitting right there while he denigrates her husband and says absolutely nothing, doesn't resign. It's just so weird.
Well, Steve is very committed. He's a friend of mine, and he's very committed to getting things passed. I mean, look, I have, despite what the press writes, I have great relationships with actually many senators, but in particular with most Republican senators. But we're not getting the job done. And I'm not going to blame myself, I'll be honest. They are not getting the job done. We've had health care approved, and then you had a surprise vote by John McCain. We've had other things happen, and they're not getting the job done. And I can understand where Steve Bannon's coming from, and I can understand, to be honest with you, John, I can understand where a lot of people are coming from, because I'm not happy about it, and a lot of people aren't happy about it.
Okay, that was in response to Steve Bannon this weekend. Went to the Values Voter Summit, who neither have values, and I pray to God they don't vote. But Steve Bannon declared an all-out war on Mitch McConnell and other Republicans that aren't, doing things the way Steve Bannon wants them done. Who the hell is Steve Bannon? When did he ever run for office? When did he ever hold himself out for dog catcher? I mean, he runs a rag, is what he does. He runs a rag that, 32% of Trump supporters, I'd guess about, 15% of them read this swill and they believe it, and it's all, just made up crap in order to, promote white supremacy and uber nationalism and this Nazi agenda that they have. But they've been attacking Mitch McConnell. He said there's going to be an all-out war on these guys. He's talking, well, I understand, Steve Bannon. I really, I can, because you are not getting the job done. But of course, he won't blame himself, because if he blamed himself, he would implode. Because he would have to blame himself for raping women, inappropriate assault on women. He would have to blame himself for colluding with Russia. He would have to blame himself for, putting out fake news every day, retweeting, pedophile rings and Comet Pizza. And, he could, if he started blaming himself, he would never stop. And he would implode. But then he had a lunch with Mitch McConnell. It was weird.
We just spent quite a bit of time inside with the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who has been a friend of mine for a long time, long before my world of politics, early into his world of politics, I think. But we've been friends for a long time.
Oh, my God.
We are probably now, despite what we read, we're probably now, I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, closer than ever before. And the relationship is very good. We're fighting for the same thing. We're fighting for lower taxes, big tax cuts, the biggest tax cuts in the history of our nation.
What? This morning, sitting next to Mitch McConnell's wife, he said, I understand why Steve Bannon is declaring all-out war on Mitch McConnell. Then he had lunch with Mitch McConnell, and he decided that Mitch McConnell was an old friend, a good friend, somebody he could count on, somebody he could do business with. And he has criticized Mitch McConnell, publicly before. And now, I don't know, I guess he realizes that Mitch McConnell is the gatekeeper between everything that would need to be done in the Senate and Trump's wildest dreams. I mean, I don't understand. But here, it even gets worse.
Did you have a chance during your lunch today to discuss the comments that Steve Bannon made this weekend? And what do you make of those comments? Going war on the Republican Party, going war on you.
Look, the goal here is to win elections in November.
Is that the goal?
Back in 2010 and 2012, we nominated several candidates, Christine O'Donnell, Sharon Angle, Todd Akin, Richard Murdoch. They're not in the Senate. And the reason for that was that they were not able to appeal to a broader electorate in the general election. My goal as the leader of the Republican Party in the Senate is to keep us in the majority. The way you do that is not complicated. You have to nominate people who can actually win, because winners make policy and losers go home.
Oh, my God. So the name of the game for Mitch McConnell is winning, and he names all these crazies that didn't get elected in front of Donald Trump, who doesn't understand what he's talking about, but then, praised him as being a good old friend. Meanwhile, right before that, he has a cabinet meeting where he trashes Mitch McConnell in front of his wife. And over the weekend, Bannon declared an all-out war on the GOP. So here's the question for you, Trump supporters, Republicans in this audience, all four of you, I get it. What has this guy done for you? And what has the Republican Party done for you lately? What has been accomplished? When's the last time they did something that benefited you or your family or held people accountable under the same law you live under? Never.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Yeah, you could buy tile at a chain store if you wanted to. You could wait for a kid to try and answer your questions about what's this made of or how do I install it or what's in stock. But what if you wanted serious craftsmanship? What if you wanted custom design, handmade, to order from your imagination or an inspiration photo that you love? Probably you think you can't anymore, but I did. When it was time to shop tile, I came across a family-owned business that still handcrafts each and every individual tile, matching your colors, your inspiration, your design. Tempest Tile Works. They're based in Portland, Oregon, and they still handcraft the most magnificent tile. Let them match to your fabrics or to your countertops or to anything you can envision for your bath or kitchen. Teeny tiny tiles to oversized, their art or yours. It's all doable, it's all affordable, and it's all individually made just for your project. Visit Tempest Tile Works and look at their amazing gallery of designs and styles and give up the chain stores. Tempest Tile Works, custom made. TempestTileWorks.com.
I remember as a kid, the stereotypical things associated with girls were cooking, cleaning, fashion, interior design, anything to do with children, hair, makeup. But as an adult, I realize that the top earners in all of these professions are men. How did this happen? Well, it's one of the conversations we're going to have on my new show called She Persisted. I'm your host, Melissa Carter, and as a media personality, a lesbian, a single mom, and a patient with a chronic disease, I can tell you, I certainly have some opinions, and I know that you do too. So let's be part of each other's lives and talk these things out on She Persisted. It's at 8 a.m. on the East on the Progressive Voices Network and on demand on the Progressive Voices app. I would really love for you to be part of the show because I believe that together we can go from She Persisted to She Thrived. I hope you'll join me.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a diversified media enterprises production. I'm Doug Cunningham. Hundreds of labor union volunteers are working on relief efforts in Puerto Rico. Union nurses, a union doctor, construction workers, and Teamster truckers are all there. Many went to San Juan at the invitation of Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz. AFL-CIO Secretary-Treasurer Liz Schuler describes some of what these union volunteers are doing.
We have construction workers who are actually rebuilding generators to make hospitals function, to make sure the ICU is operational. We have a UAW brother who reported out of the 12 bulldozers that the city had in a particular area that 8 were damaged, and they were able to send a team of mechanics out to fix the dozers to actually start removing debris off the roads so that the drivers could get the supplies through. Unions are absolutely an integral part of the community. This is something we do all the time, not just in a natural disaster, but really whenever our skills are needed, we're on the front lines responding.
AFT nurse Misty Richards on a cell phone from Puerto Rico says that even people living in desperate conditions in the wake of the hurricane care about their neighbors.
We went to visit a woman who is raising her granddaughter, and half of the roof is missing. In her kitchen and her living room, there is no roof, and she's sleeping in a bedroom that's got a moldy mattress. And all she was saying was, "We're okay. Go check on the lady at the end of the block who can't get out of her house."
7 Mexican H-2A program tobacco workers are striking over stolen wages at the Paint Lick Kentucky farm of Wayne Day. Kentucky Farm Labor Organizing Committee organizer Stephen Bartlett says the workers were supposed to get $10.92 an hour, but got no more than $8 and in some cases less than $4 an hour doing piecework in tobacco fields fields for the past 3 seasons.
First thing we did was assess the situation and write up a demand letter and basically threaten a legal suit. They know that we have their back. Even the minimum wage that's required by the H-2A guest worker program, I would say it's a little on the low side for the harsh nature of this work. It's stoop labor. It's a very grueling work, and they sometimes do 12 or 13 or 14 hours in a day working.
Bartlett says that Flock is making sure these workers have food and other necessities while on strike. He says when workers stand up and support each other, organized labor still has the power to achieve economic and social justice in America.
We can see that through organized labor, we are able to stand firm and bring results in favor of workers, even in the climate such as we are living through under the Trump administration that seeks to scapegoat workers from other countries who are here in the country, basically lifting our economy up. I think it's a sign of hope. It shows us that we still have the power when we organize in this way.
WIN is made possible in part by the OPEIU, the Office and Professional Employees International Union. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit workersindependentnews.com.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Where premiums don't have to double and triple every year like they've been doing under Obamacare. Because Obamacare is finished. It's dead. It's gone. It's no longer, you shouldn't even mention, it's gone. There is no such thing as Obamacare anymore. It is and I said this years ago, it's a concept that couldn't have worked. In its best days, it couldn't have worked.
You're a genius.
You're a genius.
Obamacare, it does exist because I have it. I have it. And open enrollment starts November 1st, everybody. November 1st to December 15th, okay? Don't forget to enroll. But I have news. First of all, the idea that Obamacare doesn't exist should be stricken from the record. We moved to strike it from the record as if he never said it because this isn't true. But then nothing he says is true. Then, of course, all the GOP people, they went on the TV and they said after Trump decided that he was going to just wipe out the CSR payments to the insurance companies, saying that that was some slush fund for the insurance companies, when truly what it is it's the risk corridor. Well, it's like a risk corridor payment, except the risk corridor payment needs to be restored too. This is a different payment. This payment is for people who can't afford their deductibles, who can't afford their co-pays. So the government pays, $7 billion. Well, that's what it is now. It pays monthly an amount to the insurance companies so that people who make between $12,000 and $30,000. Hello, that's me. People who make between $12,000 and $30,000 a year get help from the insurance company covering those deductibles and out-of-pockets, okay? So that's what the CSR payments were. And when Trump decided that he was just going to not pay them anymore, he's just not going to pay them anymore, a lot of people from states where they would have been hardest hit, mostly red states, isn't that something? And they keep voting for these, these crazy people, went on the TV and they said, why is he doing this? This is bad. This is not going to work for us. This is terrible. This is going to make skyrocketing premiums. This is going to affect everybody in and out of the exchanges. It's just bad. It's a bad idea. Bad.
The Trump administration, as you know, this past week directed the federal government to stop payments of cost-sharing subsidies under Obamacare. The president called it a payoff to the insurance industry. Why do you and your fellow Democrats oppose doing away with that?
So this is the equivalent of healthcare arson. He is literally setting the entire healthcare system on fire. The fact of the matter is the president is trying to sabotage the American healthcare system, trying to put a gun to the head of our constituents by taking away their healthcare or raising their costs.
The president's not gutting the Affordable Care Act.
Shut up.
If you take the totality of what the president did, I think it actually helps the family.
It helps the family.
What the president is doing is affecting the ability of vulnerable people to receive health care right now. because the funding that is available under the cost-sharing reductions is used to subsidize their out-of-pocket costs. And if they can't afford their deductible, then their insurance is pretty much useless. Congress needs to step in, and I hope that the president will take a look at what we're doing.
Is Congress going to do something?
Well, I hope that we can get a deal between Senator Alexander and Patty Murray.
But I will say this, that the Republicans in Congress have to be responsible. We have a path in the Senate, bipartisan path. At least, I wonder if he even knows what that path is. Because from what he says, it doesn't sound like he has knowledge, knows the facts, bases his decision on evidence. And that's a problem.
That's a problem. Is she so forceful? So this just happened.
First, I want to salute both Lamar Alexander and Patty Murray for working hard on a bipartisan solution. We think it's a good solution, and it got broad support when Patty and I talked about it at the caucus at lunch today. First, it stabilizes the system. 2 years of cost sharing provides real stability to the system.
Okay, so, Trump goes out there and he says Obamacare is dead, it doesn't exist, even though, it pays my doctors. It does a fine job. It's Blue Cross Blue Shield, and yes, it's expensive, and I get a subsidy to help me pay the premium, and then there's subsidies also for the out-of-pocket and the deductibles and all that, and, when you get cancer, you kind of appreciate that shit. Yeah. So thank you, Obama. But, okay, so the president decided that he was not going to pay these cost-sharing premiums, and we covered that, I guess, Friday or Monday. Yeah, Friday. And Patty Murray and Lamar Alexander had been working for weeks on a bipartisan solution for all the states, the red states especially, because they have the dumbest ideas about health care. And so, you end up, throwing money at them by the bucket load, by the wheelbarrow, because they just won't expand Medicaid and they won't take care of their own people, and their people suffer. And because their people are suffering, the blue states have to subsidize the red states, and it just becomes too much for me. So what Trump did was he said, screw it, I'm just going to, throw a grenade into it, and then I don't have to worry about it anymore. Well, it turns out, like I said on Friday, Patty Murray and Lamar Alexander have been working for weeks on a bipartisan solution. But because he stopped the CSR payments and open enrollment begins November 1st, and what is today, October 17th, and I told you the timing on this couldn't have been worse. You had a ton of states saying that they were going to delay enrollment. You had a ton of states saying they didn't know what to do. They were going to offer you, this was bad. They were going to offer you two different solutions. They were going to offer you Plan A and Plan B. They were inputting all this data into the exchange, into the computer, database, so you could choose, Plan A or Plan B, and they were unrolling parts of the ACA. And I mean, the whole thing was just complete and total chaos. So Lamar Alexander and Patty Murray said, okay, we're going to have to postpone the real solution to fixing Obamacare. And today we're just going to have to agree to appropriate the money that Trump just said he wouldn't pay. And that's what they did. They said, you know what, screw you, we're appropriating the money. So, the Senate reached a decision today to appropriate the money that he took at the $7 billion in payments, and they decided that they would keep these payments active, alive, and payable to the insurance carriers for 2 years to give some stability to the marketplace. Because this man is a walking hand grenade. He's a walking landmine. And to everything that Americans have, learned to depend upon. And so they restored the money for 2 years to the insurance carriers for the CSRs, for the payments. And they also restored, he's so screwed. The president refused to pay $100 million in order to do outreach to people who have Obamacare, to let them know that open enrollment began November 1st and went through December 15th. And so those 10 million people, unless they listen to me, would not know that the open enrollment period begins in just a few short days. And maybe they would let their insurance lapse, or maybe they wouldn't, send the paperwork to qualify for their subsidy, or maybe they wouldn't, maybe they would want to change their plan, but they would miss the window to change their plan. All these things can only be done at this one time of year because they have open enrollment. So they just also put into this piece of legislation, the Senate did, the Patty Murray, Lamar Alexander compromise bill. Not only did they restore the payments that Idiot Boy took out, but they also added back just over $100 million in funding for Obamacare outreach. So maybe you'll miss a Zelljan's commercial, maybe you'll miss a Tultz. And instead, you'll see an Obamacare commercial. Now, personally, I think that if they would give me the account, okay, to promote the Obamacare open enrollment, I could boost it on Facebook for, the low bargain basement price of $70 million, instead of the 100. Because isn't that what Trump spent on Facebook? $70 million. I mean, it's unbelievable. You could get billions and billions and billions of views for the low bargain basement price. I mean, you could get billions of views for $100,000. Oh, give me $100,000, somebody. I'll show you. I'll show you how I could do it. It's so easy. But give me $100,000, and I'll make sure that every single person in this country who has Obamacare knows that open enrollment. Just give it to me. Give me the $100,000. And save yourself. $100 million. Just give me. Really, I could do it. We can do this. So anyway, problem solved. So Chuck Schumer, had a little press conference today to tell everybody, phew.
And we want to make sure that happens. We want to work in the long term to reduce premiums and increase coverage. Our Republican colleagues seem to be in the opposite place on the long term.
Oh.
But I think there's a growing consensus that in the short term we need stability in the markets.
Yes.
So we've achieved stability.
Yay.
If this agreement becomes law. We've also put in some very significant anti-sabotage provisions. The president had been sabotaging this bill, and the agreement would undo much of that sabotage. So overall, we are very pleased with this agreement. Now, it's just general. There are a few more details that have to be worked out, but we think it's a very good step forward.
All right.
And speaking for myself, I hope Senator McConnell would put it on the floor under Senator Lamar and Murray's leadership. I hope the House would take it up and the president would sign it all as quickly as possible.
That would be good, considering open enrollment begins in just a few days. Yeah, that would be good as soon as possible. The president is going to sign it because that is he's just all he wants to do is say he did something. So of course he's going to sign it, and maybe then he'll declare the war on Obamacare over. Although the solutions, for the premiums and the risk corridor payments, those have to be restored. A lot of other things have to be done, but because and I told you there was a hole in the deal. The reason why the president was able to take the money out, the CSR payments, the reason why the executive branch was able to play with money, because, we never give the president money to play with. Only Congress gets to play with money, right? They have the power of the purse. And in Steve Mnuchin's case, it's like a Hermes. Okay, it's like a $40,000 purse. I mean, these people have ridiculous. You can't buy class, but they could buy the purse. So the power of the purse lies with Congress. The problem in the deal, which I told you on Friday, I believe, was that the money had not been appropriated for these payments, and it left the payments up to the president to make. That was a problem. A federal court had said it was a problem. Now, of course, there were some state's attorneys that were appealing that decision, saying that, just because they didn't put it in an appropriation doesn't mean that they didn't set it aside in a bill. And they didn't say that this was for, these payments to reduce cost sharing. That's what CSR is, cost sharing reduction payments. But hopefully what Chuck Schumer said there, and I'm still waiting for the details because there haven't been any, what he said there was that the president was able to sabotage it, and we took the ability to sabotage it out. Hopefully, or at least to me, to very educated ears, it appears that what they did there was actually appropriate the money for the payments so that the court case is moot, so that there is no court case. I hope that's what they did today. Now, that's all they did today. That, and they restored $100 million to promote the open enrollment period that's coming up on you. Of course, for $100,000, I could get billions of people. Everyone would know. So, better spend the money with me.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Yeah, you could buy tile at a chain store if you wanted to. You could wait for a kid to try and answer your questions about what's this made of, or how do I install it, or what's in stock. But what if you wanted serious craftsmanship? What if you wanted custom design, handmade, to order from your imagination, or an inspiration photo that you love? Probably you think you can't anymore, but I did. When it was time to shop tile, I came across a family-owned business that still handcrafts each and every individual tile, matching your colors, your inspiration, your design. Tempest Tile Works. They're based in Portland, Oregon, and they still handcraft the most magnificent tile. Let them match to your fabrics or to your countertops or to anything you can envision for your bath or kitchen. Teeny tiny tiles to oversized, their art or yours. It's all doable, it's all affordable, and it's all individually made just for your project. Visit Tempest Tile Works and look at their amazing gallery of designs and styles, and give up the chain stores. Tempest Tile Works, custom made. TempestTileWorks.com.
Tales of American Political History with Clinton Porter Hackney.
We've been talking about our freedom of speech and the constant protest that First Amendment right spawns. Most protests promote rash, extreme changes that fail to reach an organized intensity and fade away with little impact. Large organized protests that affect the status quo have a few things in common. First, they're disruptive and cause some inconveniences. Also, these protests usually become uncivilized and lean toward violence. And finally, there's a common element that is more difficult to see or hear. Let's call it searching for a better way to protest. Finding a better way to protest is often initiated by those who have sympathy for a cause but would rather work the problems out or reach a compromise. Once a protest is effective enough that such a search emerges, the protest is likely to be successful. Join us again for the granddaddy of all American protest. This is Clinton Porter Hackney at cphackney.com.
For the Progressive Voices Networks. This is former Congressman Jason Altmaier. Like you, I'm frustrated at the level of vitriol in our politics today. It seems as though we've lost the ability to work together, to discuss issues in a reasonable manner. Why is it that our elections seem to be dominated by the extremes? Why do so many of us feel unrepresented in Washington, and what can we do to restore trust in our electoral process? These are the questions I answer in my new book, Dead Center: How Political Polarization Divided America and What We Can Do About It. How do you win a debate with someone who won't even accept scientific fact that disproves their opinion? How can we change the mind of someone whose mind is already made up? What can we do to give voice to those who are currently unrepresented in America, the majority of us who want a Congress that can work together? If you want to know what we can do to break the cycle of extreme partisanship, Dead Center is the book you've been waiting for. When I served in Congress, my voting record was calculated to be at the exact midpoint of the House, the dead center, giving me the most centrist voting record in all of Congress. I worked with both sides and listened to different points of view. In my book, Dead Center, I use those lessons to explain how we can restore a spirit of civility to our public discourse, even on issues where we strongly disagree. There are steps we can take. There are realistic solutions that will neutralize the political extremes and give power to the mainstream Americans who make up a majority of the electorate. We don't have to surrender our core values to win elections. It is possible to give power to the people and ensure that the voices of everyday Americans are heard. In Dead Center, learn how we can bridge America's partisan divide. Dead Center: How Political Polarization Divided America and What We Can Do About It. Available wherever books are sold. For the Progressive Voices Network.
all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I've written them personal letters. They've been sent or they're going out tonight, but they were written during the weekend. I will, at some point during the period of time, call the parents and the families, because I have done that traditionally. I felt very, very badly about that. I always feel badly. It's the toughest calls I have to make are the calls where this happens. Soldiers are killed.
Yes.
It's a very difficult thing. Now, it gets to a point where, you make 4 or 5 of them in one day. It's a very, very tough day. For me, that's by far the toughest. So the traditional way, if you look at President Obama and other presidents, most of them didn't make calls. A lot of them didn't make calls. I like to call when it's appropriate, when I think I'm able to do it. They have made the ultimate sacrifice. So generally, I would say that I like to call. I'm going to be calling them. I want a little time to pass. I'm going to be calling them. I have, as you know, since I've been president, I have. But in addition, I actually wrote letters individually to the soldiers we're talking about, and they're going to be going out either today or tomorrow. Yes.
He's like a child. He's like a child. Did you send Grandma a thank you note for the $5 she put in your birthday card? Did you write that note? Go write that note. I wrote it. I wrote it last night. I wrote it over the weekend, and I was gonna send. I was write the note. Grandma's on a fixed income. Do you think that she sends everybody $5? No, just you, because you're her favorite. I mean, this is so sick, and he makes no sense when he talks about this solemn thing, this horrible thing, this terrible call of duty that presidents have all answered with regard to soldiers that they send into harm's way, that they send into war zones. But you know what? The whole media is having this big debate about because Trump had to make it about me. He had to make it about me. This is what I do traditionally. I do this. I did it over the weekend. I was going to send it out tonight. They were asking him a question. They were asking him a question about what happened to our soldiers in Niger. That's what the question was. What happened to the soldiers in Niger, and why haven't you mentioned them? It's been almost 2 weeks since they died in an ambush attack in West Africa. A, what the hell are we doing there? B, what happened to them? C, we're starting to read that there was no help that came for them. D, is this your Benghazi? Benghazi. And the what difference does it make is going to happen with this guy. But that was the question. The question was, what happened to our soldiers in Niger, and why haven't you talked about it? Now, he could have said, they're Green Berets. It was a secret mission. I cannot discuss this with you because it was so secret, except that Sarah Huckabee Sanders discussed it from the podium, saying our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the 3 dead soldiers. Turned out there were 4. One was left there. One was left behind and was only discovered by the French 48 hours after he died. He was left there. And by the way, no help came for our guys. No help. No American helicopters, no American planes, no American medics, no doctors, no nothing. No, nothing. So much for the golden rule. Battlefield injuries are seen to within an hour. So much for that. Here's what happened to our soldiers in Niger before I continue on with this insanity and show you what a front-running... Listen, he's a liar. I just showed you he's a liar. Obamacare doesn't exist. And, today they said, you know what? You took away the payments. We're putting them back. Bye-bye. And we're adding $100 million to it, too, because we want to do the outreach, because it starts in, a few days, and people need to know, because we want young people to enroll, and we want people to continue their insurance coverage, et cetera, et cetera. So we know he lies about that. But this is disgusting, okay? Because this isn't political. When soldiers die, they don't have a political affiliation. They're dead. When soldiers join, typically they don't have a political affiliation. But I'm just saying, okay, so, This is amazing. This is what happened to our soldiers. This is a really, really gross story. And for all you Benghazi suckers out there, this ought to be like on the top of your list. But it won't be. You know why? Because you're partisan. It won't be important to you. You know why? Because you love this son of a bitch. You love this madman. You love this insane excuse for a human that is trying to pretend that he's presidential. This man is totally pathological. He cannot tell the truth. If you tortured him, maybe he would tell the truth. And that's only because torture usually produces lies. So maybe it would have the opposite effect. I'm just saying. Okay, so there has been no discussion about these soldiers, and I just wanted to tell you what happened to them, okay? It happened on October 4th. It happened in West Africa in a country called Niger. They were 4 Green Berets, and they were killed by an ISIS-affiliated fighter attack. It was an ambush. It was an absolute ambush. Here is what the officials are saying. They said that it was a 12-man Green Beret-led team that just completed a meeting with the local leaders. They were walking back to their unarmored pickup trucks, just pickup trucks. And there was this unexpected ambush, and a firefight broke out, just like Benghazi. It lasted about a half an hour, and no one came to help them. There was no American air cover. There was no American nothing. So the commanders started phoning the French and said, please, can you help? The French Mirage jets arrived. And they started flying low, very low passes, trying to disperse this ambush, these attackers, right? So here's what the attackers had: rocket-propelled grenades. The attackers had machine guns. The U.S. troops were armed only with rifles. They were in just pickup trucks, unarmored trucks. And the officials in the theater said that this area had been considered unlikely to run into opposition. But now we're finding out that some locals in the area actually knew that an attack was being planned. This is according to 2 officials who are speaking to Barbara Starr, from the Pentagon reporter from CNN. The failure to anticipate an attack and the fact that there were no U.S. rescue and no U.S. recovery assets close by meant nearly an hour went by before the evacuation of the 2 wounded and 3 dead by French Super Puma helicopters. So the wounded and the dead were rescued by the French in their Puma helicopters. You can jump higher in a Puma. You can run faster in a Puma. And the Mirage attackers, they flew really low to try and disperse the crowd. And then finally an hour goes by and they could send in helicopters to pick up the 2 wounded and the 3 dead. Yes, there were 4 that were killed. The French helicopters were able to get the team to safety, but there was a critical failure to find a soldier named Johnson for another 48 hours, and that has not been explained. His body was eventually found in a nearby area, but military investigators do not know why he was left behind. All they know is there was a French-led evacuation, and if he was alive, even for a short period of time, we don't know, because he was left behind. So the officials who have read the initial after-action reports say there was confusion and uncertainty on the ground after what was a completely unexpected attack. And the team was particularly vulnerable because it was in 2 separate locations when the attack began. So they were divided, these 12. It's like 6 over here and 6 over there, because some of them were walking back from a meeting with the locals, and the others were waiting outside guarding the vehicles that the U.S. troops were using. So that's the official explanation that was given to Barbara Starr over at CNN. Now, these bodies were returned, and they were brought back to Dover in that ceremony that you've seen. You know, when a soldier dies, they're not supposed to ever be alone. There's supposed to be somebody with them at all times, with their body, to see them all the way home. And the president, even though the amount of people who have been killed under George W. Bush, huge, under Barack Obama, hundreds, and under Donald Trump, like tens. Not saying that every death doesn't count. That's not the point. The point is he could have gone to Dover. He did not go. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, did not go to Dover. He was golfing. Again. Him and that giant ass that sits beside him. We ought to name that ass. It's like a whole other person. That and the belly. I mean, it's like, looking at three different people. It's unbelievable. Anyway, here's the New York Times report. When a team of Green Berets in unarmored pickup trucks came under fire in Niger last week, they quickly found themselves in the middle of a nightmare battlefield scenario, outgunned, taking casualties, and far from friendly support. The operation that left 4 American soldiers dead and 2 wounded is now under investigation, Pentagon officials say. That inquiry, senior military officials said, will likely reveal that the American troops had deployed to a hostile area without adequately assessing the risk and lacked ready access to medical support. No medical support. Battlefield commanders have called medical aid an ethical obligation. Healthcare in the field, ethical obligation. The Defense Department follows a golden hour standard. Told you. This is a term in which the military actually seeks to whisk wounded American troops from the battlefield within an hour of being wounded, to give them access to the most advanced care and the best chance to save their lives. This is why, Obama always went to, Michelle Obama too. Her thing was, eating healthy and veterans stuff, right? Everything to do. They would have Gold Star family breakfast. They'd have Gold Star family lunches. They went to Dover, Delaware. They greeted the bodies from Benghazi. Okay, they were all there in that solemn ceremony. I mean, the idea that Obama used to go to Walter Reed, and he would spend 3-4 hours a day in Walter Reed trying to just visit with them and joke with them and tell them read the room and decide whether or not these guys wanted to, complain about, whatever, or whether they wanted to be cheered up. I mean, he would know what to do. He always knew, because he's got class and judgment and character. And Michelle Obama, same thing, would go to Walter Reed and visit the... Okay, so that all said, in Africa, the time frame for evacuating injured American troops is much longer. And particularly in West Africa, military officials acknowledged this week. The team of roughly a dozen Army Special Forces in Niger were on what officials said was a routine reconnaissance mission when they were ambushed and no American helicopters came. The French military, based about 275 miles away in neighboring Burkina Faso, the French like to colonize, scrambled to help, eventually rescuing the casualties and providing attack support. The lack of help called into question whether the American military is providing enough resources for troops undertaking dangerous missions in Africa. The vast remote stretches in which American special forces operate are inherently dangerous because of their inaccessibility and are conducive to ambushes, said Brigadier General Donald Baldock, who until June commanded Special Operations Forces on the continent of Africa. Quote, he said, "It's not the end of the earth, but you can see it from there. It's tough stuff to operate in." The military's Africa Command, this general, who isn't in charge of it anymore, hasn't been since June, July, August. I mean, he's been gone 3 months and this happened, right? The military's Africa Command asked lawmakers for help months before the attack in Niger, which is about twice the size of Texas. Okay, it's in West Africa. Go get a map. Quote, Africa lacks a theater distribution network to support our forces. This is their statement to the Senate Armed Services Committee. This is John McCain, is the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. And they said this in March. They said they have 1,000 troops operating across a 9-nation region of West Africa, and, quote, this capability gap forces our personnel to revert to costly and ineffective ad hoc solutions. Turns out the soldiers who are deployed to these far-flung regions, knowing that there's no medical help in the field, that there are no American helicopters coming, that there are no American fighters nearby to help them if they're ambushed. Benghazi, Libya, that's North Africa, okay? It's North Africa. This is West Africa. So we ought to have learned our lesson, and apparently we did until we relieved this general, and, Trump knows more than the general. So check this out. The American commandos that are deployed to this region, they joke that their command's inability to get them harm's way has boiled down to one directive: don't get hurt. A Special Operations Forces member who had deployed to Central Africa recently and oversaw planning for medical evacuation procedures for his unit said if anyone on his team was wounded, they could ideally count on being evacuated in 10 hours. General Bolduc said 10 hours was wishful thinking. He said, we're in such remote locations that they fall well outside even that expanded time frame for emergency medical evacuation, calling the military's evacuation capabilities immature. Oh, that sounds like the president, doesn't it? He said you're never going to have the golden hour in Africa. It's not possible. But you have an acceptable amount of time that we've agreed on. It's his Benghazi.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
Hey, I need to tell you something about Herky Jerky, because over the past year, you've been asking me to ask Jason from Herky Jerky if they will ever produce a turkey jerky. Well, I'm proud to tell you that he says absolutely yes. And not only does he have it now, it's absolutely spectacular. Let me start with the taste. It is extremely soft and slightly sweet, and it's bite-sized pieces that taste just like the homemade oven-roasted turkey that you have on Thanksgiving. It's made from turkeys raised without added hormones and just the right amount of salt, natural smoke flavoring, and spices that will make your taste buds go wild. And you asked for healthy. Well, Herky Jerky Turkey Jerky has no nitrates, preservatives, MSG, or artificial ingredients, absolutely zero fat, and packs a whopping 11 grams of protein per serving, and very low in cholesterol. Quite simply, I think this is one of the healthiest and best tasting high protein snacks you can get. Herky Jerky is so excited to announce the new Turkey Jerky that they're offering $5 off all packs for the entire month of October. Just use promo code TURKEY when checking out. And as always, they don't sell the little dinky bags that you get at the gas station. They're 14-ounce zip-sealed packs, and they're meant to last. Herky Jerky, making quality jerky and meat snacks for almost 25 years. Gotta tell you, I believe this is as good as anything I've ever tasted and the best thing they've ever produced. Try some today, herkyjerky.com.
This is the voice of the resistance. You're listening to the Progressive Voices Network.
Dear fellow progressive, these are the times that try men's souls. It is not the first time our country has been in peril, and it won't be the last. It is, however, a unique threat from within, one the precise likes of which we have never seen before. It is our modern media mix that has enabled an incurious, unserious, pathological liar and textbook narcissist to accede to the highest office in the land. His is a world of make-believe, one that could only have been concocted by a student of reality TV. At least we know he studied something. The imagined slights, the trumped-up, pun intended, feuds, the insulting nicknames, the Twitter diarrhea, it is all of a piece. Entertaining, funny even in another context, but when you're busy blowing up the country's longest-running foreign relationships, devastating the environment, threatening trade wars, and embracing all the wrong actors, it's really hard to find the humor. At Progressive Voices, we take holding the powerful accountable as our most serious mission, and there is nothing more important to us today than making sure the PV audience is informed with unbiased information and that more and more people become part of our audience, and therefore are better informed than they can be by relying solely on the mainstream media, which, in so many ways, has shrunk from its duty as the watchdog of democracy. It is our sincere hope that you will help us in this important mission at this most critical hour. Go to progressivevoices.com and make your donation today. Please give whatever you can. Remember, we are a tax-exempt 501c3, meaning that your donations are fully tax-deductible. Thanks for supporting the Progressive Voices Network.
Hi, it's Randi Rhodes. Listen to me on the PV live stream or on demand or both on the PV app. Just go to progressivevoices.com or download the Progressive Voices app. Yeah, you could buy tile at a chain store if you wanted to. You could wait for a kid to try and answer your questions about what's this made of or how do I install it or what's in stock. But what if you wanted serious craftsmanship? What if you wanted custom design, handmade, to order from your imagination or an inspiration photo that you love? Probably you think you can't anymore, but I did. When it was time to shop tile, I came across a family-owned business that still handcrafts each and every individual tile, matching your colors, your inspiration, your design. Tempest Tile Works. They're based in Portland, Oregon, and they still handcraft the most magnificent tile. Let them match to your fabrics or to your countertops or to anything you can envision for your bath or kitchen. Teeny tiny tiles to oversized, their art or yours. It's all doable, it's all affordable, and it's all individually made just for your project. Visit Tempest Tile Works and look at their amazing gallery of designs and styles and give up the chain stores. Tempest Tile Works, custom made. TempestTileWorks.com.
Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.